So someone wrote in and had a very good question, which is a very long answer. But the question was how to abandon negative states of mind. And then this person went on to give some examples of kind of things that come up in people's lives, like divorce and various kinds of sufferings that are kind of our day-to-day life sufferings, were the things that she mentioned. I think it was a woman. And so I'd have to say that's pretty much what the whole Buddhist path is about. So it would be hard to answer in a few minutes. But how to get started, I think, and how to even think about it, I think is really useful. And so I think part of it is to just realize that this is actually what we're trying to do, and so it's helpful to learn how to practice and what is the path. And so there's a lot of learning that has to go on, I think, to adopt and cultivate what we might call the Buddhist worldview. And so there's a method in Buddhism, and the method is learning, contemplating, and meditating. And this is how we change. And so at first we have to really learn what the teachings are, and that the best advice I know about that is to use what's working for you and just set the other things aside. Don't abandon them, don't denigrate them, just set them aside. Because in general we don't have enough wisdom to understand them yet. And so if we denigrate them or generate negative attitudes towards things we don't understand, we actually close our minds and make it harder in the future when we're might be a little more developed. And so I think that's quite important, because that comes up frequently, because the Dharma is running completely contrary to many of the ways that we think and behave and all kinds of things. So there's that part of learning, and then listening. And part of that, I think, really has a lot to do also with learning how to listen and how to be a student. And I actually think, for myself personally, that's where I put a lot of energy. In order to abandon suffering, you have to be able to follow the path. In order to follow the path, you have to not quit. In order to not quit, you have to learn how to learn properly. And what's amazing to me about Buddhism, having gone through 9 years of college in one way, shape, or form, and 12, 13 years of school before that, is no one ever really taught me how to learn. You just kind of went in there to the classrooms and did what you did, and if you were having a lot of trouble, they put you in special classes. But for the most part, you kind of worked it out on your own, seemed like. And a good teacher would make it quite easy, and it's not quite that strict, but in Buddhism there's a lot of teachings on how to listen and how to learn. So that's the first phase of this process. And the second is contemplating, which can mean being on the meditation cushion, but it can also mean discussing things and thinking about them in your mind and really coming to understand them. And even at that level, I think that you'll start to abandon negative states of mind, just because you understand things better, and you can put things in a much bigger perspective. And for my own practice, I find that trying to have a larger perspective actually helps quite a bit, because usually when I'm suffering, things are quite narrow down. And so personally, when I'm stuck, and then I'm really stuck, I actually oftentimes just pick up a Dharma book that I find very useful, and I read until I can get my mind unstuck. And so there's just so many ways to go about this, but there's even that part just the reading and learning and contemplating right there will help a lot, because you can this is what the Buddha taught, is how to abandon suffering. This is what the Four Noble Truths are all about. How to abandon dukkha, this unsatisfactoriness, which is what this person described, all these situations. But even with that, just listening and learning and contemplating and discussing things will not change your mind enough to abandon all sufferings. I think actually some things that are that you already have some understanding about, you'll make headway on. But the real way that we are taught is to actually use meditation. And so that is a huge, broad topic. And just briefly, I just would say that every negative state of mind we have has like a counterpart to it. There's a way for it to be abandoned. And there's probably multiple ways for some of them, but in general, what we're taught is about antidotes. And so in meditation, at first, you have to get to know yourself and understand your mind and see your mind and your heart, what your experience is, and be able to identify it. And then as you cultivate a practice of learning, contemplating, and meditating, over time you develop what Venerable Chodron has called finesse, which I think is a really good word for it. You have so many more skills. You see what's transpiring in your mind. Even just knowing that you're confused is so helpful. So in order to abandon something, you have to know what it is. So you have to see it first. And so one part of meditating is that. And then this is one way to explain this. Then there's the whole process of learning how to work with those states of mind. And that is just huge. There's so many ways to go about things and so many teachings. But I think in general, you can learn things from books, but the best way to learn about meditation is to have a teacher and to make time for a retreat in your life. You'll have all the conducive circumstances then to meditate properly, and you'll have the correct method. And without those, having learned from books for decades, I didn't have actually proper teaching at first, and I started doing meditation when I was a teenager, but it really wasn't until 2000 that I actually joined any kind of organized religious Buddhist group, So that was a lot of years. So I do have some experiences in learning just from books, and I did find some things that actually, there were some things that were very well written that worked, very accessible. And there are also some ways where I think I could have gotten in some bit of difficulty and did have difficulties. So I think the safest way is to have a qualified teacher and to follow their instructions in that regard. And then make the conditions suitable so that you can actually do meditation and put some time into it. I hope that helps a little bit. I think it's a big question, and the Buddha says that there's something like 84,000 teachings. We have 84,000 afflictions, so 84,000 things to learn. So that puts it in some perspective.